Coming Home by M.J. McClymont. Narrated by Deedee Ash.
I've lost another couple of pounds, Derek. Isn't that wonderful?
Derek Morris woke instantly at the sound of his wife's grating voice. The pervasive tang of charred furniture, mingled with the equally unpleasant odour of dampness, had lain dormant in his olfactory senses during the night. Now he was conscious, the stench filled his lungs, reminding him of the work he had ahead of him.
Yep, that's great, love.
How do I look? Judy placed a hand on her hip and turned to one side, allowing him a sidelong view of her figure.
You look fantastic, love. You've always looked perfect to me.
In fact, his wife had never looked worse. Terrible. Not fit to be seen by anyone. A bag of bones. She didn't need to lose any more weight. A pang of remorse for his cruel thoughts rose like a dark bubble. He loved his wife dearly. He had never stopped. His eyes had never strayed, not once in their 42-year marriage. He would support her no matter her goals, even if she looked different.
Ah, you old charmer. I'll stick the kettle on, shall I?
We still don't have electricity, Judy, he called after her.
I'll nip out and get us some coffee from the cafe when I'm dressed.
Derek leaned over and plucked his spectacles from the surface of the bedside cabinet, sliding them up his nose until the temples rested on the well-worn, horizontal indentations in the grey stubble at either side of his head. Judy had opened the curtains, allowing a flood of early morning light into the room. Derek looked around the bedroom at everything he had fixed and replaced over the past few weeks. He had painted the walls 4 times over, yet the blackened shapes the fire had left could still be seen beneath the white paint, like dark shadows cast by deformed beings. Lumbering into the bathroom with all the grace of a grizzly bear with a tummy ache, he emptied his bladder and then he turned on the tap, splashing his face with cold water. At least he had managed to fix the plumbing. It had once been his trade, after all, so he had the skills and the means to procure the parts cheaply. It took him a day and a half, but it was a relief to finally have running water. Next, he'd have to get someone in to tackle the electricity. He stepped back and almost tripped over the scales Judy had left in the middle of the floor again. He groaned as he bent over to pick it up. As he lifted it, a scattering of ash tumbled off the surface onto the fresh linoleum. He stared at the black dust for a long moment, frowning. "Bugger," he said, scooping it up and depositing it into the toilet bowl.
Bloody ash, bloody everywhere.
The charred floorboards on the stairs creaked precariously beneath his weight as he descended and entered the kitchen. He could hear the tinny voice of the local weather reporter from the wireless in the living room announcing rain for the next couple of days. Derek sliced some bacon grill and opened the cabinet doors above the worktop, revealing a surfeit of tinned supplies. He selected a can of beans and sausages, and then he ignited the camping stove on the worktop. The stove was ideal for cooking, but the rings were small, making it slow to boil water.
"Love, can you come here a minute?"
Judy appeared in the kitchen doorway.
"Could you keep an eye on this while I nip across the road for coffee?"
Judy stumbled back, staring into the blue flame on the hob as though in a trance. She moaned and shook her head vigorously as her heels tapped the doorframe. Derek frowned and hastened to turn the hob off.
"No, perhaps not. I'm sorry, love, I wasn't thinking. I'll make us breakfast when I get back."
"Okay, but no sugar or milk for me. I'm watching my figure." He opened the back door, admiring his handiwork and rubbing his palm along the grain. He wasn't much of a joiner, but he had made a stellar job of replacing the doors. A lick of paint ought to finish it off.
"Derek?"
"Yes, love?"
"Can you pick up a newspaper? I want to know what's going on in the world. Who knew life would be so dull without a TV?
Derek laughed and stepped outside.
"Of course I will, love. First world problems, eh?"
"Derek?" "Yes, love?"
"Better get some biscuits if Emma's coming to visit today. You know, she likes the soft ones with the chocolate chips.
Oh, yeah. He had forgotten that their daughter had said she would visit. She'd moved to Edinburgh at the young age of 19 to study at the university there, and then stayed when she was offered a job at the Scottish office of a global tech firm. They both missed their little girl dearly, but understood that it was important to give her the space to pursue her own life. In the cafe, Derek ordered 2 black coffees. The woman behind the counter greeted him by name. The trouble was that he could not remember hers. He knew it started with an M, Maria or Mary or Moira.
How are you holding up, Derek? She asked, her painted eyebrows meeting on her forehead in an inverted V above the bridge of her nose. Get in there. We have running water and I've replaced most of the upstairs floorboards. It's a terrible thing that's happened. If you need anything, dear, I'll be happy to help in any way I can. Well, that's very kind of you. How are your electrical skills? He grinned.
Moira, or Mary, returned his smile.
They're shockingly bad, I'm afraid.
Derek laughed humorlessly. After breakfast, they sat on the couch and listened to the wireless radio for a while. Judy read out articles she deemed to be of interest from the newspaper he brought back. Derek sat next to her, sipping coffee, occasionally asking her questions about what she had read, and providing his own perspective. He loathed tabloids, but Judy craved the drama and gossip, especially while they had no TV. The living room had been wrecked, not by the fire, but by the gallons of water used to extinguish it. Derek looked up at the yellowed ceiling, which sagged like the great membranous belly of a pregnant cow, burgeoning and ready to burst at any given moment. Judy seemed to catch his thoughts and patted his knee gently.
We'll get some help, Derek, don't worry. You must know a few tradesmen from your old line of work.
Yes, love, most of them are in the 60s now.
I'm sure it won't be long before the insurance pay out. Then we'll have the funds to call in some professionals. Where are we going to stay while they fix this mess? You know I need to stay here. You could always go to Edinburgh.
No! The vehemence in Derek's voice surprised him. He sat back in the couch and smiled at his wife reassuringly.
I won't leave you again. Not after last time.
After a while, Judy stood up.
I feel a little dizzy. I think I'll go and lie down for a while. You're not eating enough, love. You need to take better care of yourself. Let's have no more of this diet lark, eh?
Judy dismissed him with a wave of her hand.
I worry about you, he called after her. You haven't been yourself lately.
Derek chastened himself for the comment. Of course Judy hadn't been herself. She had the trauma of the fire to contend with, while he had been living it up in Scotland with Emma. He didn't mind her scrawny frame, but he did worry that trauma had given birth to the recent diet fad his wife had become obsessed with. If that was the case, it certainly wouldn't prove as healthy as she insisted it was. He had a good mind to have it out with her properly about it. Moments later, he heard the creaking of the staircase and the patter of footsteps in the bedroom. Emma arrived a little after 3. Derek met her at the door, handing her a fresh-cut set of keys for the front and back door. She looked at them silently, hesitating for a split second before slipping them into her handbag.
How are you, Dad?
Better than I look, sweetheart.
You do look thin. Are you eating?
Oh, I'm eating all right, and if you think I'm thin, you should see your mother. Emma froze in the doorway.
Dad,
she said, continuing into the living room and perching herself carefully at the edge of the couch.
Well, you know what she's like with her bloody diets. Remember that silly soup diet she did a few years back? Had her run into the loo every 5 minutes for it to break wind.
In spite of the circumstances, Emma giggled. Derek joined in.
She's upstairs, resting. I'll wake her up in a few minutes. She has missed you, we both have.
Emma said nothing. She squeezed her eyes shut tight for a heartbeat, and then opened them again.
You all right, sweetheart?
Asked Derek, when the silence had lengthened beyond comfort.
I'm all right, Dad. It's you I'm worried about.
I'm fine. There's nothing to worry about. Just a bit tired we all work in here.
Shall I boil a pan of water for a cuppa? I got some of those biscuits you like from the shop."
Emma shook her head.
"I want you to consider coming to live with me for a while in Edinburgh. The guest bedroom, you can make it your own. Decorate it any way you want." "I don't know, Em. I mean, it's a beautiful city, Dad. Lots to do. It would just be until you got back on your feet and the insurance company pay out." "I know, it's just the Scots. They're a bit brash in the city. I don't think I fit in north at border. And I was born in this town, lived here all my life. I can't imagine living anywhere else now. I mean, look what happened the last time I was away from home." "All right, Dad, no more excuses necessary, I understand. You don't want to leave this smelly old place. But this isn't good for you, and I won't stop asking."
Derek looked at his daughter's soft features, her hazel eyes and dark brown hair. She looked so much like Judy when she was that age, an image of beauty. His heart swelled with pride each time he saw her, and he knew that Judy felt the same.
"We're very proud of you, sweetheart, your mother and me. Just the other day I was boasting about you to, Moira or Mary or something in the cafe."
Emma blushed.
"You can take some credit, Dad. Good genetics and a perfect upbringing helped."
Derek's face lit up with a smile, and he had to turn away. He did not want his daughter to see him blink back the tears that threatened to spill over.
"Dad, there are some things I need to do in town today, and some friends I promised I'd catch up with tonight. Can we have lunch together tomorrow?" "Good idea. I'll set the table and we can have takeaway. Family lunch, our treat." "No, we'll go out for lunch. You need to leave this stinky place sometimes."
Derek's expression faltered.
"But your mum."
"Dad," Emma said, giving him a meaningful look as she rose from the couch.
"I'll swing by around 12. Oh, and it's my treat this time." "But be ready. No excuses."
Emma moved to the front door.
"Okay, but your mother'll be upset that she missed you again."
Emma's hand rested on the door handle. She turned, put her arms around her father, and kissed his cheek.
"This isn't good for you. I know it's painful. It's painful for me too, but you need to accept what's happened. Wait here, I'll go wake her."
Emma shook her head.
"I love you, Dad."
She opened the door and left before Derek could respond. Derek was certain he had seen a tear run down her cheek as she turned. He hated seeing her upset, always had, ever since she was little. He stood for a time and listened to the engine of her car recede into the distance. Then he ascended the stairs to the bedroom. He thought about the day he had returned from his last weekend in Edinburgh. He remembered vividly hearing the wail of sirens as he turned into the street, and with a shiver he recalled the flames licking the exterior of the house, sending a pillar of black smoke to the heavens. The panic and the profound feeling of helplessness that day was something he hadn't been able to shake. Later, the fire marshal had told him that the fire began in the bedroom. Those stupid scented candles Judy had an abundance of had been the source of the conflagration. He cursed every member of his family who had encouraged her collection by gifting them to her at Christmas and birthdays every year without fail. He had been furious with Judy at the time, but in the end, the feeling of loss eclipsed all other emotions. He had moved back into the house a few days later, repairing what he could, taking stock of what he couldn't, and all the while adding up the mounting cost in his head, like rapidly spinning numbers on a rigged electric meter. When Judy returned home a few days after him, he had been shocked by her appearance, but too overwhelmed with emotion to question it. They continued where they had left off, as though nothing had ever happened. He was glad of it. Awkward conversations had never been his forte. Now, Judy and the crumbling house were indivisible. He didn't have to see her to feel her presence. It was as though she had become part of the structure itself, and for that reason he would never leave, no matter how much Emma pleaded with him. In the bedroom, Judy lay on the now filthy linen, resting. Derek gazed upon his wife's naked form and fought hard to hold back a shudder of revulsion.
Her lips had shriveled around her mouth, forming a static grimace, her sightless eyes now black recesses deep in her charred skull. Fault lines in her dry, crumbling thighs revealed grey bone beneath. Tiny mountains of ashen flesh had fallen from her skeletal frame, forming a blackened aura around her. Judy raised her hairless head from the pillow and grasped a handful of ash. It susurrated as it spilled out between her bare phalanges like sand from the Reaper's hourglass. "Look, Derek, I've lost more weight. Isn't that wonderful?" This has been Coming Home by M.J. McClymont. Narrated by Deedee Ash.